Hey everybody, what's up? Do you want to see me build a bug in a box? Because that's exactly what I'm doing in this video. I'm going to build a bug in a box. A very shiny bug in a box. To kick this project off, I'm starting with my beetle's home. I took some 6mm EVA foam and cut it into strips. These strips would then go on to adorn the acrylic display case. The goal here is to simulate a metal frame holding the panes of glass in. To help the illusion that these pieces of foam are metal, I use these little brass tacks to simulate rivets. And then it was on to an assortment of metallic paints. I started with a hammered copper from a rattle can, and then added some depth with gold rub and buff. Future Patrick here. Past Patrick here? Post-editing Patrick. That's it. Hey all, post-editing Patrick here. Katora has brought it to my attention that I did not inform you guys on a crucial part of this project, and that is the acrylic box. This acrylic box. Well, here it is. This is the whole foundation to the entire project. And, a little extra tidbit for you, this is not the last time you're going to see me in this video. With my faux metal frames glued into place, my first challenge presented itself. The pieces of acrylic were not cut equally, so when I assembled the case and glued the foam on, I had these odd gaps. That wasn't going to fly. I was also too far into this project to just scrap it and start over. So, I had to hide my crimes. And what does every crafter reach for when they need to hide something? Caulk. In my case, it was quick seal acrylic caulk. The goal here was to simulate welding seams. Once the caulk cured, a little copper enamel paint did the trick. It's not totally perfect, but the display case looks a lot better than it did. Hey all, post-editing Patrick here. Katora, while editing this video, brought it to my attention that I explained nothing about the 3D prints in this project. Excitement, we'll say my adventure to find as much different little bits and pieces as I could, I forgot to do the one thing every YouTuber needs to do. I forgot to hit the record button in my haste to gather as much materials as I could. This project, I was collecting all kinds of bits and pieces, and I 3D printed. So those things will be linked down below if you want to print the same pieces I did. Now, here's those 3D prints. With 3D printing involved, the standard process of finishing a 3D print commenced. Once these 3D printed parts were sanded and primed, they got a nice coat of brass. When that brass paint was dry, I could then move on to the main event for this part of the project, trying to make sense of all these little bits and pieces. On top of 3D printing, I also did a fair amount of kit bashing and rummaging through scrap bins to find different little bits and pieces. And while rummaging through my many bins of odds and ends, I found this. Some copper tubing. Fun fact about this copper tubing, it's actually left over from my Rocketeer project. So if you're looking for another fun video of mine to watch, why don't you go check that out? I highly recommend it. Now, it has dawned on me that I have not really said just what it is I'm doing with all these random odds and ends. What is my plan for all these seemingly random bits and pieces? Around the shop it is becoming more and more apparent that I love a good diorama. And that's what I'm doing here. The plan is to make a steampunk-inspired terrarium. All these tubes and tanks and greeblies will make up a life support system for the resident of my terrarium. I will have a list of all the materials I used to craft this project in the description below. The last phase in the outside of my terrarium was a touch of weathering. I would like you all to meet Bert. Bert is the star of this little project. Found Bert off Cults 3D. He comes from a designer by the name of Dendaba. He's actually got quite a few different 3D models of giant beetles, so if that's your thing, go ahead and check him out. Bert is a specimen of the Cyclomatus genus of stag beetles, and what drew me to this particular species was a shiny gold shell. Bert was by far the easiest part of this whole project. He was 3D printed in resin, then primed with a gloss black enamel. To give Bert his shiny metallic shell, I reached for Turbo Dork's Afterburner. What drew me to this particular paint was a color shifting paint. And you look at reference photos of this particular stag beetle on the internet, and it's not a true gold. It's a very iridescent, so it shimmers from green to gold, and this paint really simulates that effect perfectly. The last piece of my terrarium is the base. The base of Bert's home, I start with XPS foam. To start, I went over it with a few passes from my problem solver and a wood rasp. Being a stag beetle, Bert feeds on decaying plant matter, so the base is going to be just that, a nice pile of dirt and sticks and tree bark. And I can't think of a better way to craft a nice pile of dirt, sticks, and tree bark than with actual dirt, sticks, and tree bark. To lock my real dirt into place, I used a mixture of Mod Podge, rubbing alcohol, and water, aka scenic cement. With my dirt glued into place, I needed my trees and tree bark. And well, this nice little pile of storm damage did just the trick. With Bert's new home finally finished, the last bit I needed to do was to introduce my shiny little friend to his new digs. I then put a roof over his head and sent this off to the glamour shots. Well, I hope you liked my shiny bug in a box. And before you all bug off, please like, subscribe, and hit that little bell. Let us know how we're doing.